everybody, my name is Elizabeth and I'm a librarian here at the LSC Tomball Community Library. Welcome back to Screenshots, which is the series where I recommend you great movies that you can watch for free through the Harris County Public Library. So I obviously love movies, but in addition to loving movies, I also love learning about history. So movies set in historical time periods are a natural thing for me to be into. But only when I started writing this video did I realize how many of my favorite movies are actually historical dramas. Movies are, of course, a visual medium, and movies set in historical time periods are able to draw on a unique array of stunning visuals that make these films more interesting. And so it really only makes sense that some of the greatest films ever made are actually set in the annals of history. So with that in mind, I want to recommend you 4 great historical dramas that you can watch for free through the Harris County Public Library. So a couple of quick disclaimers before we get started. First, all of these movies are rated R. And second, I am not a huge stickler for historical accuracy in films set in historical time periods, but if you are a very serious history buff, you will probably find some places to quibble with my choices. But I am recommending them based on their quality as films, not on their historical accuracy. So with that in mind, let's get started. Unlike some of the other genres that we've talked about on this series so far, I'm going to assume that you've probably seen at least one movie set in a historical setting before. So instead of placing these movies into different categories, I'm going to rank them from what I feel would probably be the most accessible movie on the list to what would probably be the most challenging. With that in mind, the first film that I would like to recommend is the 2017 film The Beguiled, directed by Sofia Coppola. Coppola has actually made a couple of period pieces, including her 2006 film about Marie Antoinette, but I feel like The Beguiled didn't really get the attention that it deserved, so I would like to recommend it here. The Beguiled is centered around an all-girls finishing school located in rural Virginia during the Civil War. To avoid the encroaching Union Army, everyone in the school has escaped except for the headmistress, 1 teacher, and 5 students, leaving them essentially alone in the middle of a war. One day, while gathering mushrooms, one of the students finds an injured Union soldier and brings him back to the school to convalesce until he can be handed over to the Confederate Army as a prisoner of war. However, the introduction of an outsider into the girls' carefully controlled world has disastrous consequences. Like Marie Antoinette, The Beguiled is set in an isolated area populated primarily by women. But unlike Marie Antoinette, where the Versailles of that movie is kept carefully away from the brutality of revolutionary France, the violence of the Civil War is always right off screen in The Beguiled until it breaks through and destroys everything that the women have worked to maintain. This movie has some gorgeous sets and incredibly beautiful costumes, so even though the story is a little bit dark, it is still definitely a feast for the eyes. You can watch The Beguiled on DVD from the Harris County Public Library. The next film that I would like to recommend is the 2000 film In the Mood for Love, directed by Hong Kong director Wong Kar-wai. With the other movies on this list, the historical setting is very central to the overall plot, but for In the Mood for Love, the setting of 1960s Hong Kong is just another layer on the overall dreamy mood that the film evokes. In the Mood for Love follows a man and a woman who move into adjoining apartments in Hong Kong on the same day, only to discover that their spouses are having an affair with each other. The two strike up a friendship to commiserate about their unfaithful spouses, only to realize that they are also developing feelings for each other, leading them to decide if it would be worth it to pursue an affair, even if it would make them happy, if it would also mean that they're stooping to the same level as their spouses. This film is absolutely intoxicating and is filled with beautiful costumes as well as the setting of 1960s Hong Kong that is shot with an incredible sense of love and nostalgia. This is only compounded by the soundtrack, which features classic songs from Nat King Cole, as well as from Joe Swan, who is an influential singer from mid-20th century China. Everything about this movie just drips nostalgia, love, and atmosphere, and is widely considered to be one of the greatest films ever made, even if you don't consider yourself to be a foreign film buff or a history buff yourself. You can check out In the Mood for Love on DVD from the Harris County Public Library. Although they don't always get a wide release in the English-speaking world, China has an incredible pedigree in historical dramas, and these films also see crossover into other genres of Chinese film as well, like kung fu movies, or in the case of the next film I would like to recommend, wuxia. Wuxia is a subgenre of martial arts films that is set in ancient China, and many of the most famous Chinese films ever made are actually wuxia movies, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and the next film I would like to recommend, which is the 2002 film Hero. Hero is made by the Chinese director Zhang Yimou and tells a mythologized version of the unification of China into a single empire following the Warring States period. It follows a nameless warrior as he survives attacks from 3 different assassins in an attempt to gain an audience with the king of the Qin kingdom. At the time of its release, it was the most expensive film ever made in China, and it's easy to see why. Everything in this movie is absolutely massive, and it features scenes with hundreds of actors, in addition to the gravity-defying wirework fight scenes that wuxia is known for. But in addition to these things, it's also a compelling story of noble warriors, love, and revenge that gives you the same feeling you get of walking through a museum and being absolutely wonderstruck at the incredible things that you're seeing. You can check out Hero on DVD from the Harris County Public Library. If I want to learn more about a specific period in history, then I'll read a book about it or watch a documentary. What I get out of historical dramas is not really the same as the kind of academic information you would get from a piece of nonfiction. And instead, I'm trying to understand how a particular point in time felt, rather than trying to know every detail of what it was actually like. The perfect example of this is our last film, Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon, released in 1975. Barry Lyndon is based on a novel of the same name by William Makepeace Thackeray and follows an Irish social climber as he attempts to move up the ladder in 18th century Europe by marrying a wealthy widow. Barry Lyndon features all of the high society wheeling and dealing and subterfuge that makes movies set in the 18th century so entertaining, but the real draw of Barry Lyndon is how it looks. Because it was set in a time before electric lighting, Kubrick insisted on filming the movie using only natural light and candlelight. Additionally, the movie is filmed in actual historic homes and buildings rather than on sets. Because of this, Barry Lyndon is actually one of the more accurate representations we have of what 18th century high society looked like, which makes it a really interesting watch that isn't really like any other historical drama you might have seen. Similarly, Barry Lyndon is known, probably more than any other Kubrick film, for being exceedingly slow and features a number of wide static shots. While this might be a turnoff to some people who are used to very action-packed, high-paced films, this really serves to mimic the pace of what 18th century life was like, and leads some shots to feeling almost like paintings with their incredible level of detail and unique staging. Because of this, Barry Lyndon is truly a historical film like no other, and if you want to get an idea of what living through the 18th century was like, if you were exceedingly wealthy, then it would be the film for you. You can check out Barry Lyndon on DVD from the Harris County Public Library. All right, those were 4 great historical dramas that you can watch for free through the Harris County Public Library. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter so that you never miss a future episode of Screenshots or any of our other great online programs. And let me know if you watch any of these or if you have a favorite historical drama that I might have missed. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.